Okay, so just want to talk a little bit about the situation in the Middle East. Obviously, the Middle East is a labyrinth inside a maze inside a puzzle. There's no way I can cover everything in one video. It's very troubled place and it's a very complex place. But I would like to touch on some recent developments. Firstly, Syria. It's an ongoing crisis, and the war shows no signs of ending anytime soon. The total number of deaths in 2015 was 55,000. Now, that's a horrendous toll. It is slightly less than the previous year, which was reported at 76,000. But these are massive figures that far surpass any other war in the world. If you look at the figures for Afghanistan or Iraq or Nigeria or any other conflict zone, Syria still soars ahead of any of those places. 55,000 people in 1 year, that's staggering. So the Syrian crisis remains the world's most pressing armed conflict as a source of geopolitical concern. I've just read a report, or at least skimmed over a report about residents of a town near Damascus who are basically starving and they're being forced to rummage through bins. It showed a man who looked really emaciated. Truly quite unsettling images. It's nothing new. This is obviously a situation that's been going on for quite a while now. It's like the siege of Sarajevo during the Bosnian War and the siege of Grozny during the First Chechen War. This is a war that I think has had a particularly hard impact on cities in Syria. Anyway, whenever something is brought up about Syria on the news, like my Facebook timeline, I can almost predict that there will be someone, several people, blaming the West for everything that's happened. Now, this is an attitude that I've little time for because it's plain wrong. That's the most important thing. It's blatantly wrong what they're saying, i.e., that it's all the fault of the West. But also to me, it's I don't think these people really care about the Syrians. I think it's more to kind of vindicate their own bias. Um, I think Russia is very, very culpable in a lot of this crisis. Why? Because from the very start, Russia has shamefully armed the Assad regime. Now, everyone knows how vicious and how horrible Islamic State are. I don't need to remind people of that. And, goes without saying that they're a despicable, savage organization. I could use a lot of negative adjectives to describe them. But the fact of the matter is, Islamic State only took advantage of this situation and really capitalized around late 2012. The war's been going on since late 2010. That's a very important point. The majority of Syrian civilians who have died have been at the hands of the Assad regime, not Islamic State. That's not to mitigate what Islamic State has done, but that's a fact. The majority of Syrian civilian deaths have been at the hands of government forces, and their shameless barrel bombing campaigns, indiscriminate mass murder of civilians. The ideology of the Assad regime is anyone who is against the government is a terrorist, and this is basically a totalitarian mindset. Assad has used that to basically murder men, women, and children who happen to be on on a different side from him, and it is an absolute worst epitomization of a brutal dictatorship. And my concern is in the focus on Islamic State, as it should be, people are forgetting what the Assad regime has done. And I think the West is right to continue to condemn the Assad regime because the Assad regime has blood on its hands. Now, people have very smugly said, Western leaders, one day they want to bomb Assad, the next day they want to bomb ISIS. The fact is, this is a very complex situation, and both are as bad as each other. So, it's a bit hypocritical to say, oh, the West is funding ISIS, and then condemn the West for wanting to take action against ISIS. As from what I can tell, ISIS, like many terrorist organizations, has very murky origins in terms of its funding, and I've seen several sources that suggest as many as 30 countries may be funding ISIS. So to say the US and UK alone are funding ISIS is rubbish. Terrorist organizations get their arms from all sorts of murky sources, and the global arms trade is a very murky business. Um, I've no problem with people criticising Western policy so long as they're objective and balanced enough to recognise the negative role Russia has also played. And I think when I see people praising Putin and praising Russia's role in this, whilst crying crocodile tears over Syrian civilians, I feel pretty pissed off because that shows to me that they don't give a damn about Syrian civilians. If they did, they would recognise what Russia has been doing, arming the Assad regime. These are facts, irrefutable facts. Now, I do think that one area the West seriously needs to evaluate is our relations with Saudi Arabia. Um, the other day, they executed 47 people. I'm not going to say each and every one of those people were innocent dis- uh, dissidents. I'm not going to say that. I don't know each and every case. May well be that some of those people were terrorists, but certainly some of them committed their alleged offences under the age of 18. Certainly, there's political dynamics in that. Also, I think Saudi Arabia and Russia need to answer why they have not been doing more to help refugees. If Russia is such a great saviour, why are no refugees going to Russia? It's a huge country. You know, there's plenty of space in Russia. Why aren't they going there? Um, why has Saudi Arabia not been helping more? And this is one area I do think that we have an Achilles heel, so to speak. Um, Saudi Arabia is despised throughout the Arab world, frankly, with the exception of a few of the Gulf neighbours, and with good cause. It's a backward regime that not only have they a barbaric human rights record, but they have been playing games in the region for years. So was Iran, to be fair. But, Saudi Arabia last year killed thousands of Yemeni civilians. And where was the outrage over that? Very little. So I totally understand why there's Arab anger at the West's relations with Saudi Arabia. And frankly, I think it is motivated more by oil and so on. And that's something that we seriously need to assess. Now, I'm realistic enough to know that we cannot simply tomorrow turn around and say, oh, we're not going to have any relations with Saudi. It's not going to happen. But I do think that we need to be a lot more consistent when we preach about human rights. And we need to be more consistent in terms of if we're lecturing one dictatorship, i.e., Assad, not to slavishly be supporting another, i.e., the House of Saud. Just both are as bad as each other. I'm going to round this up pretty soon, but there really are no easy answers to the Syrian situation. It's very difficult to see a situation where there be a ceasefire with Assad saying on as president, because the Syrian opposition will never accept that. Clearly, this war cannot go on forever. Far too many people have suffered. It's caused the worst humanitarian crisis in Europe since World War II. It cannot continue. But I think we could do several things. I think Russia and the Gulf states should be doing more to help refugees. I think there should be more coordination between regional countries to solve this crisis because it is the region's most pressing crisis. I think it's far more serious in Israel Palestine right now. Um, so yeah, I I think it's wrong to put all the pressure on the West and say that Britain, France, and America alone have to sort the situation out. Gulf states should be doing a lot more. Um, Although it is worth remembering when we're talking about refugees that countries like Turkey have taken enormous pressure from this. Anyway, I don't have all the answers. That's just some of my thoughts on the current situation.